One of our IndieX artists currently, we were helping her with an EP launch, and one of the product offerings that she put together for it was a handcrafted puzzle of the album art, like on like a nice quality backing, that it was just sick. It was just an awesome product. And her fans loved it. It was very her, and she got to tell the story of, creating it and crafting it and, showing like, I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this. So like, don't think that your time is just mysteriously should be hidden from your fans. I think when you go the extra mile to add on this personalization or, put your personal handcrafted touch on your merch, you should tell your fans about it. You should talk about it. Be like, guys, I'm doing this because like I dig it and I hope you do too.
You are now listening to the Creative Juice podcast, brought to you by Entrepreneur.io.
What's up, Indies? Welcome back to the Creative Juice. I am your hostess, Corinne Campbell. Is it, Jack, should I be gender neutral if I'm the one saying it?
No, hostess
What's
is
politically
cool.
correct?
This is not a politically correct podcast.
True dat. Most definitely not. All right, cool. Well, I'm Corinne. With me is Jack. We are back to talk about more merchandise. Black Friday's coming up. Have we mentioned that lately? And I definitely, Full Stack Merch is finally opening their product development section. And when I say there, I mean my hour. And, one of the things that I really love to do on this side of Full Stack Merch that we've not really done and opened to indies yet is product development, which means I look at everybody's branding. I look at their persona. I basically want to personify people in tangible objects in their merch and kind of create that, tangible element of their artistry. And that's really what merchandise is best to present, in my opinion. So we're going to talk about that today. Obviously, if you are interested in Full Stack Merch, you can check that out. I'd love to look at your stuff. That's entrepreneur.io/full-stack-merch. If you want to learn more about that.
Man, that's a power URL.
Yeah, it's underlining it,
Yes, I love it.
If only we could underline in all caps links. But so if you're interested in that, obviously go check it out. But the objective today is not necessarily to sell you on product development with Full Stack Merch. It's to kind of get your gears turning for Black Friday, for the holidays, or just generally, right? You should be developing your products on a regular basis. And I wanted to come in and kind of, give you some tips, tricks, tools, inspiration to do that with your merchandise. So Jack also has a ton of experience with this in IndieX. A lot of those clients are running very cool promotions, very cool merchandise, really, personifying their merchandise, right? So I'm excited to dig in.
Yeah, I think this is going to be super fun. Last week we really talked about like the pre-production stages of merch and fulfillment and planning and, setting up a tech stack that works for you. But I think this like ideation and product development and, fitting things to your brand and making really badass offers, I think this is where indies like really shine when it comes to merch. This is what people like to talk about when they talk about merch. Right. So yeah.
Well, this is what we should want to do, right?
Yeah.
This is where your creativity gets poured into something, even more, because obviously CDs are cool, right? If you've got CDs, t-shirts, and hoodies in your store and you're like, oh crap, now what? You need to realize that you are creative. You make cool things, right?
Right, yeah.
You are not limited to these items. And if you are limiting yourself to those items, you're limiting how much your fans can support you. You're also limiting how excited they're going to be about supporting you, right?
Yeah.
Because if they love you, you want them to have options for supporting you that they love as well, as much as they love you. So I think, I actually see a lot of indies get stuck here. They're like, I don't know, like what to do. I'm just going to make these standard products. So I hope that this, conversation will inspire you to think outside the box, really push yourself to evaluate your own artistry and come up with something cool.
Definitely. Well, I think that's a great jumping off point. I'm going to put you on the hot seat here for a sec, Corinne.
You love doing this for some reason.
I do. It's so much fun. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I'm into it.
So if you were talking to an indie that was kind of in that position that you were, just saying, like a little stuck, feeling creatively in a bind, maybe they've got a few products in their store that are, sort of your standard sort of set of things, maybe a logo t-shirt, a CD, maybe a hat or a hoodie, something like that, but nothing that really sticks to who they are. When it comes to product dev and ideation, where would you start with someone that, came to you, whether it be a friend or an indie that was working with full stack merch or anything? If someone was just coming to you for advice, what would be your starting point when it comes to product development? If someone needed a roadmap, where would we go?
Well, the first thing that we look at is we're checking out the person's branding, right? If your branding is done well, it should have some kind of vibe to it, right? Your colors are bold. Maybe they are more pastel based, right? So there's a mood that's attached to all of these things.
Right.
If you're using flourishy kind of illustrations on your website, or if you're using stuff that is a little bit more graphically constructed, right? Where it's more geometric and less organic. All of these things can really influence, how you move forward in creating products, because, the t-shirt isn't the only thing you can put on your stuff, right? And you can put your logo on all kinds of things to offer a range of branded products, right? So you also want to have kind of an option in terms of revenue as, are they paying $5 for something? Are they paying $50 for something? What are the options that you have in between, which we've, obviously talked about on this podcast before. So basically what we're looking is at the branding, the website, the color, the things that you currently have on your store, and trying to find out what your artist vibe is. We actually listen to the music, right? We take a look at lyrics to see if there's anything in your lyrics that kind of echo, whether it's an album cycle or whether it's your entire artistry. What is the motif within the content of your songs? A lot of times we'll look at fan feedback, right? If you have reviews on your store, or if you even just can share with us the comments that fans are making about your music, what they identify with. All of these things are important in figuring out, first off, what kinds of products make sense for your fan demographic, right? But it also helps us, to kind of figure out what kind of vibe and what kind of environment we want to create around a product. So very rarely are we just like, okay, what's a cool product? We're actually thinking about what is the environment where this sits and how can we have items within that house, so to speak.
Right.
And I like that. I think that it's really fun, to kind of look at all these components, put them together. And, basically if you were going to invite someone over, and you were going to have cool stuff in your house, what would you show them? What are the things that reflect your personality within that little home? And really for us, product development is building that house.
That's super cool. And I think of that analogy of like, if someone were to come over and you had your, cool stuff in your home, what would it look like? That particularly rings true with me. I think about like some of the artists and the brands and even like the influencers that I follow. In a lot of the videos that they do, like they've got cool stuff, behind them in the backdrop. I don't have anything like that behind me right now, but, but you see a lot of stuff like that and it catches your eye and it's like, oh man, that would be something. I would love to have something like that,
Right.
As a fan, it really draws you in. So I think that's such a good analogy.
Yeah. I like, one thing that we've done in the past, there are certain artists who, maybe they've got other skills, right? Where they paint or draw, or, they like to make things out of wood, right? Handmade items are usually, obviously those are individually made. Maybe they're even made to order. Even if your t-shirts are that, it's more exciting and cool than just having a run of shirts, So we're always looking at that as well. What kind of skills does this person have? And then figuring out, all right, so what are these alternative things that are very typical of e-commerce, of buying online? So if you're talking about home goods, artwork, things that, whether it's candles, consumables like that, there are things that we try to look at there if that fits with their brand. Obviously people know mugs because mugs are something that's available on demand, but there's a ton of other types of, drink or utilitarian kind of products that can go
Flasks.
along. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Flask. We've talked about shot glasses, which are pretty inexpensive to order. I think that really delving into a lifestyle that's connected to your music is a great place to start when you're thinking about what kinds of things can I make that aren't just apparel or things that people wear, but stuff that they look at, stuff they display, and stuff they can use in everyday life.
Yeah, that last point is, I think, particularly important for indies to think about is like, can you take is there a utilitarian spin that you can take on the products you offer? I think if you can do that kind of thing, that, sets you apart from the mountains of musicians and artists that are out there that are just selling t-shirts, slinging CDs. If people can have something that they actually can use, I've seen a few artists actually do things like, custom Bluetooth speakers, or even like those Crosley like style suitcase record players, like personalizing them with Sharpie marker or paint, or like I personally love like sticker bomb items. So like that would be something that I would love to do for my own music, like sticker bombing a record player. That kind of thing, then all of a sudden it's tapping into something that your fans like to do. If they consume music on vinyl, they might love to have a player from you or a speaker from you or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And, it's funny because a lot of people still argue, right, that CDs don't sell. I'm not going to get on my soapbox. Y'all know what I think about that. But that's the difference, I think, between CDs and vinyl, right, is that CDs are not utilitarian friendly much anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of people who buy it, maybe there are a lot of people who still have CD players who don't have a late model vehicle, right? And there are still plenty. There are still plenty of Americans who have not bought a car in the last 4 years. So don't be classist, there are still plenty of cars with CD players out there, but vinyl is an experience and utilitarian, right? There's something about flipping the record and putting it on there and having the nip, you know what I mean? Like that's it's an experience, but it's also utilitarian, and more people are using those like in a utilitarian way to listen to music, and create, a kind of ambiance or experience in their home. So, that's one of those things that crosses over.
Yeah, I think that's so cool to think about. Like something that we talk about often when it comes to creating digital experiences is like, how can you bring your fans into your world? But imagine the opportunity to curate an experience for your fans in their home, outside of the digital space. Like something like I love to do is like sit with a record and listen to it and drink coffee out of a mug or tea or adult beverages or whatever. And to be able to put together, a product offering that could run the gambit of all of that, like a shot glass set or a whiskey glass set with a record player and your limited edition vinyl. Those are like cool curated experiences that you can make for your fans. I liken it to, there's an e-commerce company around, you probably see ads for it, Corinne, like the like mystery mystery boxes,
the subscription boxes.
The subscription boxes. Imagine and I know people that have bought them and love it. Like, imagine being able to curate that kind of experience for your fans with your merch. I think that sort of thing is the future.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked way in history about the Shirt of the Month Club, right? Which
is
something that it's a killer machine and it's a killer to set up, but it's also, a bruiser if you have enough customers at the right point where that makes sense. But, imagine if you're really delving into an album and this album is kind of like a picture of your life. you could take people through that experience, right? Whether it's with a game, whether it is with this kind of subscription box, you don't have to think about these, these boxes as material items, right? This is another idea where it's like, this is conceptual. This is something where it's segmenting your album into stories, into things that people can interact with. And so what they're buying is not like, okay, great, this is a murder mystery. I've got a knife here so I can go stab someone, and I've got a DNA kit so my friend can test my DNA. They're not sending these material items to these people. They're talking about a, intellectually constructed experience. And that's something else that you could, if that's something that you can see, if you like games, even if you are into like video games, check out what the storylines are in these different games. There's no point in, making a video game that doesn't have some kind of storyline. There are characters, there are objectives and goals. So I think that that's something that could be a really cool development for any artist to create for their whether it's an album cycle or whatever, or if it's holiday themed, do it for a subscription or just do it once. It could be really fun.
Totally. Yeah. It's really like, I think it allows you as an artist to kind of extend your creativity beyond just the music that you're making, deeper and deeper into what you do and how you do it with your fans. I know that that's something that we get into a lot on this podcast, and I preach about a lot, is like, pour your creativity into it. Like, I probably sound like a broken record, but like, hopefully this opens people's eyes up a little bit to see like, oh man, like I can make really cool stuff that's not just, doesn't just look cool. Like it's cool through how people use it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one thing that we've been making here at Full Stack Merch are these little LED lamps they're basically made of acrylic projecting, LED projecting acrylic. So essentially you put it in this little base, right? And they can even be interchangeable. So if you sell one base with, there's a certain kind of art and maybe lyrics of one of your songs, you can then sell interchangeable pieces for that lamp. But in theory, that lamp is still being used for something. Maybe it's ambiance at a party, or maybe it's a nightlight, or, it could be a lot of different things. And so, that is, again, mixing that creative element where you're also, there's a utilitarian purpose for it. And I think that's the best of both worlds, is when you can create something that is interactive or of use, but also has a very cool and distinct representation of you on it.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm excited to see how the development of of those LED lamps continues. I know, like, you've been teasing them out to the team, so I'm stoked to see how they kind of grow and how you ideate on them.
Yeah. In fact, I still owe both Circa and Jack templates of these, but I've been producing enough of them on my own that I've not been able to do those yet. But I promised I would get Jack and Cirque prototypes of those. But yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely really cool, and the fact that they're interchangeable, right?
That's so cool.
Yeah, I really like that. And something that I've been experimenting with is thinking about, like, okay, we've got this insert, they're interchangeable, but I've considered like making almost puzzle piece cuts in these so that it's like half and half, or maybe even 3 pieces, and those pieces can be interchangeable, and then you stick it in as one item. And so there's a lot of different things. Yeah, there's a lot of different things I've been considering with that. But that's another thing to look at with your merchandise. If you create something and your fans respond well to it, it's like, okay, like, spin off on that, right? Don't be like, okay, that was a great product, and now I'm just going to keep selling that and move on to creating something else. There's definitely value in finding themes to these.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I have an example of that, actually, a really recent example.
I could hear it in your voice that you were ready with something.
Yeah, this is an exciting one. One of our IndieX clients, we've talked about him and talked with him plenty on Creative Juices, Dave Pettigrew, a Christian worship artist, and he has been running for the past year or so a shirt of the month style machine that he calls the backstage collection. And in his collection, he puts together for each month a limited edition accessory kind of item. And for the month of September, what he did was he created, he had designed these prayer bowls that were essentially like a desk piece that you could have on your bedside table or your kitchen table or something like that, where if you had like an intention or something that was, on your mind or on your heart, you could write it down and put it in the bowl. Friends and family could do the same kind of thing. They sold really, really well with his base, definitely like very much in keeping with his brand and his ministry was, this idea of, helping people to do something that was important to them, kind of helping them focus in on their inner life. And so following it up in October, just yesterday, as of recording this episode, he launched a spin-off of that product, actual like custom branded prayer cards to go along with it. And people have been loving it. It actually was something that his fans asked for after buying the bowl. They were like, oh, like we could use Post-it notes, but it would be really cool if you put something together for us. And so he did. Cool. And it was just a great spin-off of a product that sold really well. So major kudos to Dave, as always, for being inspiring. But hopefully that gives you guys a concrete example of, how this kind of thing can work.
Right. Dave is one of those artists who has always been really great, I think, at, knowing what his brand is, knowing what his fan base would be interested in, right? Knowing the culture that surrounds his brand. And that's why, Dave, if you're listening, give me a call because we've been trying to line up on Full Stack Merch doing some stuff for him because I have a feeling he's just such a great artist to, kind of spin off with. But I think that's a really good cue, right? If you have fans who are participating in certain products, create spinoffs. And the other thing that's cool about that is you can test these things individually. And then if people are really into it, then, take 2 more items that would go along with that item and create a bundle of it. Maybe don't sell those items separately. Some people are like, well, I already bought that thing and now I have to buy all 3 of them to get it. And it's like, well, yeah, you do.
Yeah, exactly.
And, the artists do that all the time. I mean, I can't tell you how many limited edition versions of things I have where I'd already bought the vinyl or bought the album. And I was like, oh, but this one comes with these things. And hell, I'm just going to buy that,
Me too.
It's totally normal. So I think that's something where, a lot of indies are afraid that they're going to get negative feedback. And like, if those grumpy people come at you, tough. The majority of people understand that that's just how life works. So I think that that's always a great way to take a cue from what's being, sold in your store, what's successful, and what your fans are going to continue buying if you build upon it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something else to consider is like looking at your existing merch and seeing, what styles, and Corinne, you went into this when you were talking about like ideation, and a starting point is like, look at what styles sell well, whether it be a design or a specific type of product, whether it be like a hoodie or a shirt or a color, looking at what works and using that data as, customer research and building things that are similar to, what your fans already dig, and just, expanding that way, works really, really well.
So let's go ahead and take a step back here. I mean, I think that it's very easy to ideate on, a fan base that already exists, right? And a store that already exists and merchandise that already exists, right? And that's a lot of what we're talking about here. But I think for a grassroots artist, there's a very different challenge, right? Maybe you're just creating your store now. You don't have a ton of customers yet. I think, something that should be articulated here is that doesn't mean that you should just wait until you have enough customers, right? Now, the problem is that if you are ordering really cool stuff and, trying to do it through Alibaba or, even a locally based vendor, whether you're in the US or another country, I think it can get really expensive, especially because there's minimums attached to it, right? So this is something you always need to consider when you're ideating these things is like, okay, I have cool ideas, but now how am I actually going to produce this stuff? Like, where am I going to find this? And I think one thing to really look at, again, is getting into hand treatment, right?
Yep.
And figuring out what your talents are. And if you are like me and have no artistic talent, there is nothing that I could possibly literally hand treat. Like, I mean, maybe screen printing my own tees and doing a limited run of those. Perhaps I know that I could screen print my own tees because I've done that before. And that's more mechanical. It's not really artistic, right? Because the design is created not by hand, at least in my situation. But there are still options. So sometimes it can be useful to be like, okay, I'm going to have to order 1,000 to get this product customized. So maybe how can I customize it myself, And it's amazing, like even like dip dyeing things, right?
Yeah.
Or, getting t-shirts that are black and then dipping half of them in bleach. Literally takes no art, but it's a very cool looking tee. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not into tie-dye personally, and it doesn't really fit my brand, but if it is something that fits your brand,
No.
I know. I'm like,
Definitely not.
yeah, I'll stop wearing black when they make a darker color, right?
With you.
Definitely that person.
We are team emo over here.
Right, exactly. Either that or Crayola colors. That's where I'm at.
Yep.
So tie-dye is not really my thing, but maybe that is for you. And those are something that are super easy to do. And a lot of people really dig that kind of look, especially if they love your music and that's your vibe. So that's something that's super easy to do. You can like splatter paint things. That ain't hard.
Love that. Love that so much.
So it's kind of amazing. That's one thing that tees can be, if you're doing like an all over print, that can be really expensive to do, if you're having someone else do it. But you could also have tees that are pre-printed or that you're screen printing just standard on the front yourself. And then you can essentially get these little, you could use like for you ladies or any men who wear mascara, those little spoolies that you can get for makeup, you can use that to splatter it. And you can simulate an all over print, which has a very elevated feel to it. But use screen print paint, the same paint that you would use to screen print it legit, use that and, splatter it on the t-shirt. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do that it's a little arts and crafts, right? And it can take some practice to keep it from looking arts and crafts, right? But if you don't necessarily have a lot of customers, but you still want to have creative things to offer, those are the kinds of things that you can put together. And even the first customers that come into your store are going to be like excited by that, right? It's hand treated, it's created to order, right? All of these like selling points. Those are highly advantageous. So even if you're like, well, I'm not to the point where I need to have a huge diversification of products, you can still make that initial run of products really exciting for those new people.
Yeah, there's so much you can do with it. I mean, even for products that aren't shirts, like I love like relict things. So like I've like hand sanded and stained guitars. Like I said, sticker bombing is a big one for me. I love sticker bombed items.
I saw that at stand-ups. Was that today or yesterday?
I think it was yesterday. My sticker bomb strat. That is a new quarantine creation of mine. I've taken to guitar building during COVID times, which has been a blast. And it's given me so.
I would never put stickers on my bass. Ever.
Yeah.
I would not put, but my case is a total sticker bomb.
Oh yeah. That was the OG, that was the OG sticker project for me. 12-year-old me was loading a case with stickers. This guitar.
What, are you calling me immature?
No, not at all. I'm just saying that's where the passion started.
Right. I gotcha.
Yeah, that kind of thing, you can really get creative with it. And I mean, I've even, and at that point, if you're doing small runs of inexpensive things and then personalizing them yourself, your only high cost there is your time.
Right. Which if you don't have a lot of fans, make the time. right?
Exactly.
Because that's what's going to take for you to get fans. I think something that makes me go crazy as, not just an artist myself, but as someone who has, worked with a lot of indies to get this stuff knocked out is, I know you don't have time, right? I know that you've got a family, you've got a job, you're making music, you're trying to do all these things. And I know that adding some kind of like merch construction feels like this giant new skill to build. And like, I'm marketing my music, I'm trying to learn how to run ads, I'm building all this tech stack, but just take a Saturday or take a Wednesday or whatever day of the week that you have, take a few hours and do this. Because if you want to have a music career, you gots to, right? Like, and that's one thing where I lose sympathy at some point. I get it. I can empathize. I am stupid busy. I burn out sometimes. I'm so busy, but you have to want it. And these things it's amazing what kind of selling point that you can actually make more progress in getting those customers and getting those merch orders coming in and keeping and retaining these fans and customers because you put that effort into learning that skill. So, if you're telling yourself right now, I can't do any of that stuff, overcome that challenge because you can, even if it's just
playing
one
yourself.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Learn one skill because you'll be amazed at how much those things actually, they evolve, right? So if you learn how to splatter paint one thing, guess what? You've now created a theme that you can splatter paint a bunch of other things, and you don't have to learn a new skill for that. You might have to test new materials or see how it treats a little differently, but, just push yourself to learn that one skill. And if you draw or paint, you're golden because there's so much you can do with that.
Yeah, one of our IndieX artists currently, we were helping her with an EP launch, and one of the product offerings that she put together for it was a handcrafted puzzle of the album art, like on a nice quality backing. That it was just sick. It was just an awesome product. And her fans loved it. It was very her, and she got to tell the story of, creating it and crafting it and, showing like, I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this. So like, don't think that your time is just mysteriously should be hidden from your fans. I think when you go the extra mile to add on this personalization or, put your personal handcrafted touch on your merch, you should tell your fans about it. You should talk about it. Be like, guys, I'm doing this because like I dig it and I hope you do too.
Right.
Put it on your freaking Instagram story. Use it as content. Like you can make this stretch out. Most artists that I work with that do any kind of personalization, whether it be, signing items or even shipping items, like they usually do like, oh, I got the designs in, like, let me do an unboxing video so you guys can see, like, content, bang. Oh, I'm packing up the van full of orders today to take it to the post office. Content, bam. Right. So like it does stretch out over like, over different stages of your buddy system as well. Like showing your fans that who are just kind of orbiting you and hanging around, maybe they're not customers yet. If they get to see that you're doing that and hearing you talk about it, it's like, oh man, like he really cares or she really cares about the stuff that they're putting out to us. I think fans like to see that kind of stuff. I know I do. Yeah,
definitely. I get feedback from that all the time. And I know I've preached before on, I write a personal note on every single order before it goes out. And sometimes I have to, dig into my Shopify and be like, has this person purchased from me before? Even if I'm processing 50 orders that day, I'm still going to go look, right? Am I writing welcome to the Campbell Corps on it? Or am I writing thanks for your continued support, right? Those little things just make or break, they really can, your relationship with these fans, especially new ones, right? And so there is evidence if the merch itself is not, handmade or hand treated in some way or doesn't have my personal touch on it, bare minimum, the packing slip does, right?
Yeah,
There is evidence that I have touched the thing that they're getting. And I think that that's really important. So even if you're in a position where it's like, look, I don't have these items, I'm still trying to figure this out. Even if you're only getting 2 orders a month, man, make that just super legit. And I think, to Jack's point, making content out of that is a gimme. At this point, not only are you showing other people what you're doing, but it's also kind of teaching your fans to also post about it.
Yeah. Yep.
In my Facebook group, people are posting, they're like mail call, because that's a very, I know that that's outside the military as well, but in the military, mail call is when everybody gathers around and gets whatever was sent to them. And it was like one of the saddest days ever if you left mail call and had nothing. But
oh God.
Yeah, I know, right? Depressing. Let's move on from
sad.
that.
Yeah.
But, that was the kind of thing that people were posting in the Facebook group, mail call, and they were posting photos or videos of what they received. And you can teach them that behavior by doing it in the creation process. You can also, it's amazing how many people have now ordered these different products because they were prompted by someone else's user-generated content. So all of that is really valuable. And unless you ask for it, suggest it, prompt people to do that, you can't expect them to just do it on their own. So don't be shy. Definitely, especially if you're making something that's hand created, be like, look, I would really love to see, that it arrived, and tell me if you like it and all of that. And they usually will do it in a place where they can share it with other people.
Yeah, for sure. I think that really just outlines how this whole concept of like tying your brand and making sure that your merch is really badass, how it all compounds into the customer experience and building a fan base that hangs around with you and creates fans that stick around for a lifetime. I know that's been kind of a topic on Creative Juice in the past few weeks. Like, I think that this is a really important point to that, is like, your merch should be more than just merch. If you take away anything from this episode, I hope that it's that.
Yeah, I absolutely think that everybody who does not already have plans for the merchandise for Black Friday, even if you just have like a few fans, think about something you can create, and it doesn't need to be holiday themed, right? I typically don't do holiday themed stuff, mostly because I stay away from holiday themed things. I know some people make like ugly Christmas sweaters. That's a thing, those aren't cheap to make. Right. I definitely go seasonal with different apparel items. I'm about to launch a bunch of hoodies in my store because, fall's rolling around. But, sit down and brainstorm. All right. Am I a badass? What kinds of things are my fans interested in? What kind of things are they talking to me about? Is a common theme in my storyline, in my album? Am I talking about deserts and desolation? Is there something I could do there? Am I more of a, meditative type? You know how easy it would be to make a Zen garden, like get a little wood box that you could those are super cheap, right? You can, there's tons of vendors online that will make that. Buy some sand, put it in a Ziploc bag, and get one of those little rakes, get a little, pebble from your driveway. Done.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the kind of stuff that, just think about things you use on a daily basis, things that bring you joy on a daily basis, because chances are your fans are like you, and you can create something for them that will bring them as much joy as you may get from something like that.
We get really fired up about this topic. I love it.
Dude, I think look at your branding, right? Obviously, some people here are probably still thinking about what their branding is going to look like, and sometimes, you definitely don't want to put the cart too in front of the horse. But if you're still, kind of feeling things out, you might want to create some things first, right? Don't stick to a logo. Maybe you don't have a color scheme yet. That's fine. You can still make things that just have your name on it. Right? And
totally.
our cool items. And sometimes those things can actually help you figure out how you want to present yourself to people. What do you want your brand to represent? I can imagine it would be even easier to figure out your branding by first thinking about what kind of products you'd want to sell, because that's the way regular businesses do it, right? Are we a bank? Okay, what do we want our branding to look like? We want a green logo. We want strong, sharp lines. We want to communicate trust. Those are the kinds of things that, a lot of businesses have the product first. They know what they're going to be doing, and then they build branding around it. So, if you're still starting out and you don't necessarily have customers, or at least not a consistent flow of customers, and your branding is still flexible, play around with merch ideas. Okay, am I someone who, again, like the meditative thing, or even an artistic thing? Can I offer journals? Is that something that would be cool, right? And then think about how you could treat these things. And that may lead you to a path where you have a cool brand idea. This can also apply as you move from album to album, right? It doesn't even necessarily be that your art, your logo changes, but perhaps the theme, right? Right now, my things are all themed in a purple color, because it's basically going in, it's in tandem with this album release. My hair was purple at the time. All my press shots were in purple. And so my whole site is these gradients of different purples. But that's not necessarily, that's not going to be a lengthy piece of my brand. That's something that goes along specifically with this album cycle. So if you're an artist like me who really changes pace when you go from album to album, and your vibes are very different from album to album, then maybe focus in on that, right? Create merch that's more in the person form of your current album. If you could describe your album as a person, what's its personality? How does it interact with people? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it somebody that comes in and slaps everyone on the face when it enters the room? What personality does this have? And so, that's another way where you can get flexible with this merchandise and kind of come up with a theme, but it doesn't necessarily have to spin directly off of your primary brand colors or your primary logo.
Yeah, for sure. You can have essentially like sub-brands or sub-brand assets or elements within your overall, brand, especially as you grow as an artist and as you have more and more work and time under your belt. I feel like that's just a natural thing to have happen.
Yeah, it's just like fashion. I mean, fashion goes through seasons, and obviously there's, warmer weather, cooler weather, right? And that's a much faster cycle than most artists are putting out an album, or, unless you're one of those like rapid single kind of releasers, which is obviously very different. Right now, if you were to go look at I'm not sending you to my Spotify, but if you were to go look at my Spotify, all of the single covers for the greatest hits singles are this space inspired particle art. And they all have that, and they all have a different vibe, right? But they all are kind of themed together. So when you're planning out singles, even if you're not doing an album, maybe that's something you do. It's very natural for things to move through themed cycles that are still, quite obviously the creators, sub-brands, so to speak.
Yeah.
But they kind of go together in a collection. And then you move on to the next and pick a different color scheme and a different vibe and have fun with it,
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I mean, I hope I know there are going to be some people listening to this that are like, I want you to tell me exactly how I can pick apart my brand. And unfortunately, like many things on this podcast, the variables are endless. So there's definitely not a lot of firm, hard guidance I can give you, but hopefully you found some pieces of this at least inspiring to think about, okay, how do I pick apart the elements of my artistry that can materialize into a tangible product for me to sell to people? I really do hope that you can pick something from this, right? Or you can always hire Full Stack Merch to help you.
Little plug, yeah.
Yeah, a little plug there. But I mean, that's one thing that I am really passionate about. I also really get very frustrated when I know that there are indie artists who have a beautiful, amazing merchandise idea, but can't execute it because they don't need 1,000. They don't have enough fans to sell 1,000 pieces, right? And some vendor who's going to make this is going to require that, which is why Full Stack Merch is happy to do a run of 25 after a product's developed. We're doing a lot of short run things, especially when you're first testing it. So I think that that's something that I'm very passionate about. And so if anyone has a brilliant idea, but the vendors that they've been looking at are going to charge them, so much extra because they want to do a short run or just flat out have a minimum, Full Stack Merch is one of those solutions. And I think that indies are actually really capable of creating very cool things, but maybe just can't get them produced in a way that's reasonable. So, I think that's why our product development wing of Full Stack Merch developed in the first place. That's why it was created in the first place, is to offer a solution to that, because we have amazing creatives in this community.
Yeah, it's so exciting. I think it's a huge opportunity. Merch in general is a huge opportunity for indies to flex those creative muscles, and it's clearly something that you're passionate about. It's something I love talking about. So I hope that we see more and more of it as Full Stack Merch grows and as our community grows.
Awesome. Well, I was revved up from this conversation. It makes me want to go sketch out some things. Not sketch literally, because I cannot draw. I can't
not
draw
art.
A stick person. Yeah, I can't play hangman. All right, it's just not even a thing. But I do now. I'm motivated to go plan out some new things for my people. Next week we're going to come back. We're going to talk about a hugely requested topic, which is YouTube ads, and which really are Google ads. And this is something that we've been talking about for a long time. I was actually developing a Google Ads training for our Indie Pro training vault. And Cirque and I kind of looked at the outline and we were talking about it. And it's really, really complex. And there's a lot of, we have some position statements on that. And, also we've all been running YouTube ads and have seen, there's some examples of what's done well, what hasn't done well. And I think it's something that a lot of people have been looking to hear something about. So we're going to discuss Google ads, mostly YouTube ads next week. And I'm excited to share some of that with you guys. So thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week on Creative Juice.
Peace out.